Reactions trail report uncovering ISWAP's 18 billion naira terror financing network. And Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria lament President Buhari's lack of effort. Well, this is Plus Politics. I am Mary Anna Kong. Outrage, anger and disgust were some of the responses to a report by the Intergovernmental Action Group on Money Laundering in West Africa that the terror group Islamic State's West Africa province ISWAP moved a whopping 18 billion naira annual revenue through the Nigerian financial system to fund its activities. Now, the federal government had been criticized for its failure to track the money and the movement of these funds by the terrorist groups, Boko Haram and ISWAP, through the country's financial system. In the same vein, the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria had lamented President Muhammadu Buhari's government's lack of effort to evolve the needed intelligence gathering infrastructure to track the movements of this cash by terrorists and their masterminds within the country. Well, joining us to break this down is security experts Dickson Osajie and public affairs analyst Ambrose Igboke. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Ambrose, it's interesting. Let's start from the Human Rights Writers Association and what they had to say about the president's efforts. I'd like to take your mind back to the fact that the UAE government had arrested and prosecuted certain people who they had named to be financiers of terrorism in the country. But in Nigeria, we've heard the federal government again and again say, well, they're doing it, but they were not going to name and shame. Do you think that these people also fall in the category do you think that these people are some of the reasons why government has been said to have failed in tracking and following the money?
Well, first of all, terrorism as and banditry and insurgency are the things thriving currently in Nigeria only leads to one pointer. And the pointer is that it is a thriving business. And that is why it has been sustained for a very long time. The man Yusuf, who was allegedly the founder of Boko Haram, remember that since 2009. So what has been happening is that other groups came in from the Middle East, from North Africa, from Libya and other places, and they stormed Nigeria. And what has been happening is that you can see that there's an upsurge in the cases of, before now it was restricted to the Northeast, and we're having issues of,
banditry,
Boko Haram, isolated to 4 local governments. By the time Jonathan was leaving the presidency, they were controlling 17 local governments. But all these were restricted to the Northeast. Gradually, they moved to the Northwest, moved to the North Central, and then before we could know what is happening, they are everywhere in the country. They are in the South-South, they are in the Southeast, they are in the Southwest, and they are all over the country. Now, this suggests one fact, that is a thriving business. First,
I think we had a little problem with Ambrose's network connection. But we have Dickson Osajie joining us. Dickson, you used to be a soldier and you obviously are a security expert. Why do you think it's taken the federal government so long to name and shame or even track the financiers of terrorism in Nigeria?
I don't know. If you ask me that question, I don't know. Thank you for having me. You rightly made made it clear in your analysis that the UAE government apprehended 7 sponsors of terrorism here in Nigeria, and they were meant to pay the consequence. But here, I don't know the reason why our government have failed to name and shame these criminal elements here in Nigeria. Terrorism has been striving, just like Ambrose said, it's as if it has become a good business here in Nigeria. But for me, I will hold the Nigerian intelligence network accountable because we cannot have an effective intelligence mechanism in Nigeria and we still have this criminal and this sponsors of terrorism excelling within the confines of our country. It's a failure on intelligence from the Directorate of Military Intelligence and other intelligence network that are supposed to stage a sting operation against these conflict entrepreneurs that are benefiting for the security situation in Nigeria, So what I would advise the federal government to do is to start naming and shaming those that they've arrested. I think some few weeks back, we were made to understand that over 400 people were arrested within the Bureau de Change. And what's happening within those arrests? Are they finding their way out, or are they being bailed or released? If we don't create an effective punishment network or punishment mechanism, Mary Ann, I tell you for free, people will just feel that it's okay to come to Nigeria, sponsor terrorism, sponsor insurgency, make more money, and the government are not capable already to bring it to book.
I want to make reference to the Turkish leader who was in Nigeria recently, Tayyip Erdogan, and he also pointed to certain people, certain elements in the country, to having been those who were behind, the attempts to topple his government, saying that these people are terrorists and they were being harbored in the country. I'd also like to take your mind back to some guns and some cache of weapons that were intercepted. First, the first set of them, I think, were intercepted at the port, and then another was intercepted in the middle of town. And most of these caches were traced back to Turkey. That's one. Again, how does the government deal with this issue if somebody like former President Goodluck Jonathan had said that sponsors of Boko Haram are even in his cabinet? How do you blame security agencies for not being able to get the right intel if these things are politically sponsored, according to what the former president has said? And even this government has also made, remarks such as that there might even be sponsors of Boko Haram in government. So how does government fight itself? Can you really single-handedly blame the security intelligence network, as you said?
Thank you very much, Marianne. That's a very intelligent question. And that's why we need to start looking at people-centric protection, because what we have presently in Nigeria is regime protection. Most of the police leaders, army leaders are all about protecting the regime. They are not people-centric, they are regime-centric. People-centric in the sense that they are supposed to uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, protecting lives and property. But each time an incident transpired, our security leaders, first of all, want to protect the regime. If we start looking at protecting the people first, I think some people in government will be arrested, perhaps if the security agents are ready to take the bull by the horn, because security is defeated if our politicians and security leaders are looking at regime protection. We must take a departure from regime protection, Mary Ann, because each time we look at regime protection, we're not going to get hold of people who are creating unrest in this great nation. Regime protection must be eliminated. If the president of Nigeria has hands in sponsoring terrorism, whatever the case may be, there are processes to follow in impeaching the president from government, from power, or any governor that is being suspected of sponsoring terrorism. The impeachment capability here in Nigeria has been deflected so hard that we don't have the capacity and capability and political will to impeach any governor or any president or anyone that is fighting against the Nigerian state. So I will tell you for free that I'm going to hold the security agency responsible, because when you go and when you look into the global network, every nation that is excelling today, Mary Ann, the Americans, the United Kingdom, the Russia, the Germany, check it very well, the security agents are more of people-centric and not regime-centric. So if we start looking at people-centric protection, people-centric security, and not regime-centric, I tell you, most guys that sponsor terrorism and hide under the guise of government will be fetched out, because our police, our soldiers, our military needs to start looking at people-centric protection.
Ambrose, I'm coming back to you. Apologies for the network, the disconnection. He's talking about people-centric policing, or making sure that, whatever is done in the interest of the people. But that is in a society where the laws work, the systems work. Now we're bringing it back to Nigeria, where our systems, or the people, the politicians, the elites, seem to be bigger than the institutions. So we have bigger men and women, stronger men and women, and weaker institutions. So how do we even get that? Where do we start from in dealing with that? Again, I want to take you to Kaduna State and Zamfara State, states that have been some form of a theater for both banditry and Boko Haram. These governors have strived over the years to deal with these issues. Some of them might be homegrown. Some of them, of course, have been as a result of the fact that these networks have spread. But we also have a Plateau State, if I'm not mistaken, where the governor has been, I think it's Benue State, where the governor has been calling on the federal government day in, day out. In fact, it has become a him versus the federal government issue in dealing with the issue of, banditry and the killings, terrorism in general. Do you think that maybe these states have not necessarily done all that they need to do, and that's why we're where we are? And again, should the federal government be the ones tracing these monies and financiers of these terrorism activities in those states? I'm not saying federal government can, but should that not be the job of state governors?
Well, first of all, the federal government has what we call the legitimate instrument of terror. The Constitution has given it to the federal government. The federal government is in charge of the police. The federal government is in charge of the DMI, the NIA, the Navy, the Army, the police. They are in charge of the custom, the officers of the correctional centers. So the civil defense. So all the apparatus of the security are under the exclusive list, under the federal government. But our Constitution, cheekily, in a very cheeky manner, says that the chief security officer of a state is the governor. But the commissioner of police does not receive instructions from the governor. The GOCs or head of GOC command brigades do not receive instructions. The director of SSS or directors of other military agencies or paramilitary agencies do not receive instruction from the governor. So the governor is helpless in most of the time. He can only do with local vigilantes and some other things he can, cook up in his state. And we have seen issues where there are security meetings where governors give instructions and nothing is done about it. One is in Enugu State here in 2016, where there was a security meeting held on a Sunday about an impending attack on Nimbo in the Uzuwani local government area. And then the next day, as early as 4 a.m., they're struck. Meanwhile, there was a security meeting held. So there are issues like that that are bound. Then when it comes to the owners of the financial institutions, the financial institutions are regulated by the federal government. The Central Bank of Nigeria regulates the banks, the commercial banks, and all the merchant banks, and all the banks that are operational. So also, the instruments for bureau de change is also regulated by the federal government. The stock exchange is operated by the federal government. The airways of Nigeria is regulated by the federal government.
I'm sorry, Ambrose, let me come in there. I'm sorry, I do not want to, cut off your train of thoughts, but quickly, as much as we all know that, we're running some form of unitary system and these people all get their, orders from the center, every single police officer, soldier, naval officer, Air Force officer, even the guys that you talked about that work in government parastatals or ministries, departments, and agencies, have sworn an oath to defend the people of Nigeria. And the people of Nigeria are not only in Abuja. So it means that whether a governor gives you an order or not, should these people not have the interest of or the safety of the people in the areas that they've been assigned to, should that not be a priority instead of waiting for a governor to give an order?
Well, first of all, when you have a unitary system like that, the police, you cannot police the nation with a unitary system where one man sits in Abuja and answers the Inspector General of Police. And then we have a commissioner sitting in the state capital, running states. A state like Kaduna State, somebody sitting in Kaduna wants to run that kind of landmass. So what we are saying, first of all, the structure is defective. The administrative structure is defective and is affecting the war on terrorism. Terrorism like this and insurgency has to be a community-based effort because it is only the community people can know where to fish out those people. And that is why in countries like where Dickson has mentioned, like the Europe and America, you see that their security dovetails into the grassroots, the counties, the wards. They have the civil police in the communities. And these are the people that do the real fighting. The federal police, like the FBI and CIA, they are not into most of the time. They do more of intelligence gathering. While the people that do the real dirty jobs are the people in the communities. And that is what Nigeria should have done. But, you know, as we continue going, everybody's like, somebody in Abuja wants to hold the power and wants to control the power. And the governors are not even looking at that because they go with an entourage of security people. Then secondly, when you talk of the financial institutions, last time the CBN came hard on the Bitcoin operators, saying that they use Bitcoins to run some illegal things. We were thinking that, okay, is it part of terrorism? They don't have a link to insurgency or something. But again, we now found out that the people, that these insurgents or these terrorists that demand for ransom, don't collect ransom in Bitcoins. They collect this ransom in cash. Where do they send the cash to? How do they pay the money? Some of them even follow the victims to automated teller machines, ATM, to withdraw money. Some of them collect transfers. How do they now get the money out? Therefore, there is something wrong with our financial institutions. There's something wrong with the banks where you cannot. Meanwhile, you and I, who are responsible citizens, when we go to the bank, I want to do a transaction beyond 1 billion naira. We are told that they will report us to EFCC, report us to this and that, so that they can be sure that we are cleared. For some people are moving 18 billion naira inside our financial services and our sector, and yes, somebody is keeping a blind eye to it. So it all goes to say that there is something we are not doing well. And if we do not wake up now to tackle this menace, because when your country is now seen as a way to have a slush fund for illegal activities, look at the issue. These things are interconnected. Look at the issue of drug, of this meth going on and all the drugs coming into Nigeria, our youth are suffering from. These are connections to all these slush funds coming in, where they can come into Nigeria, launder money to terrorism, through banditry, through insurgency, through drugs, and then move it out from our system. This is the only country where you are not questioned how you raise your money. Somebody who was poor yesterday can wake up tomorrow and build a fantastic structure, can build a supermarket or a plaza, and then he goes to church and gives.
Oh my goodness, I think that we lost that connection with Ambrose again. Let me come back to you, Osajie. Interesting points that he has raised. He actually quickly got into the questions that I was going to ask you, but isn't it interesting that a President Muhammadu Buhari, who is the head of ECOWAS, does not or did not even realize what's happening within his own domain? He took an ECOWAS to uncover this financial, transfers or misconducts within our banking system. And of course, these terrorists. Now, he's also made mention of the fact that we're a corrupt system. I'd like to take your mind back to the fact that Twitter was shut down because the federal government did say that Twitter was being used to cause some form of, uprising in the country. As we speak, we hear that they're going to try to block all streaming platforms or regulate it. Let's not forget that WhatsApp and Facebook is also part of the next process that they are saying that they're going to look into. Just as Ambrose said, they've also at some point, blocked the Bitcoin usage. All of these avenues are avenues in which legit businesses are being done. But then in a bank, if I go there, I'm just a journalist and I do a transaction that's over 1 million naira, it's flagged. But how do these monies go through these same banking systems? And now it took an ECOWAS to find it. How do we deal with the corruption in our financing system?
Well, thank you, Mary Ann. Such an interesting questioning. When it comes to terrorism financing, I think the Central Bank of Nigeria should up their game, because if they don't up their game, that tells you there's compromise.
Does the central bank have a game in the first place that they're supposed to up? I'm just curious.
Oh, yes, they should. During the EndSARS of 2020 last year, they came up with some list of people that sponsored the EndSARS. So if the Central Bank of Nigeria can come up with some list of sponsors at the EndSARS rally 2020, then they have the capability and ability to also fetch out sponsors of terrorism. Because we must be very clear, before you can sponsor terrorism through the bank, there are three processes to follow. First process is placements, the second process is layering, and the third process is integration. You place the money first to the bank. At this time, the bank management officials receive the money. Then layering, the money goes through layering, whether you're transferring it to somebody or you are using it for certain payments. Then from layering, it goes to integration. So from these three processes, if the banking system cannot identify a threat or someone trying to sponsor terrorism, I tell you the truth, there is a compromise out here to play because terrorism financing is a very, very serious business. And we must also start looking at Burundi change as well. What are the regulations? What are the regulators regulating our Burundi change? Because that is one of the weak points in Nigeria. Mary Ann, you talked about federal government trying to, stop some people trying to stream or streaming or Twitter, whatever the case may be. It's so sad and regrettable that we have a government or a regime that are not interested in policing the people, protecting the people. Rather, they are attacking the problem. There are two ways to problem solving. If you don't solve the problem, there's no problem. You don't fight the problem, you solve the problem. How do you solve the problem? It's through operational design. It's not all about attacking the problem. We need to start looking at solving the problem. The people of Nigeria, are they the problem of this government? Why are they much more interested in Twitter? Why are they much more interested in YouTube? They are not even looking at threat assessment. That tells you that the National Security Advisor of Nigeria should resign, because if he knows what he's supposed to do, he should be able to carry out a threat assessment of this country and push it to the presidency, because there are priorities of threats. Okay. Twitter, YouTube is never the threat of Nigeria. Terrorism is the biggest threat now in Nigeria. So let us treat it.
All right. Quickly, in one sentence, Ambrose, do you see the government acting on this particular report that has been released by ECOWAS, or is it just going to gather a lot of momentum for a few weeks and then it would die a natural death?
Yes, the government will act. Let me tell you how they will act. The Minister for Information will call a press conference and debunk the reports as apartheid, or as neo-colonialism, or as people who are trying to denigrate the hard work the government is doing. They will take the report with a pinch of salt. They will see it as a direct attack, because this government have seen that anything that you are not talking about in favor of them is seen as an attack. And that is why I say that some people around the government, the president, are not doing him in any good. They are making the president look bad. The president is trying his own efforts, but I think he's being misadvised by some people, because they are making it look as if once you are not in agreement with some certain policies or statements of government, then you are an enemy.
Wow.
We all own this country together, and we want it to succeed. We want our president to succeed. So when those around him are sometimes being psychopathic and telling him the things that are not true, it all behoves on the rest of the citizens to say so when we say things that are contrary or things that are factual, they should not be construed as things that are against the government.
Well, Ambrose,
but I don't see the government acting.
All right. Well, Ambrose Igboke and Dickson Osajie, thank you so much for speaking with us. We appreciate your thoughts. We're really hoping that the government does something about this report.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
All right.
Thank you very much for having us.
Well, thank you all for staying with us. And that is the abridged version of Plus Politics on Plus TV Africa. I am Mary Ann Nicole, and follow us on YouTube at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. Do have a good night.